How do you listen? Do you listen through your projections, through your ambitions, desires, fears, anxieties, through hearing only what you want to hear, only what will be satisfactory, what will gratify, what will give comfort, what will for the moment alleviate your suffering? If you listen through the screen of your desires, then you obviously listen to your own voice. You are listening to your own desires. Listening has importance only when one is not projecting one's own desires through which one listens. Can one put aside all these screens through which we listen and really listen? In this quote, Krishnamurti explains how our own perspective and opinion on things can completely change what we hear. In essence, we never actually hear what the person has to say. Instead, whatever message they have is warped by our own point of view on life. The teaching of Zen explains that not only what we hear, but all that we see, smell, taste, feel, and experience is not the actual objective reality, but only our own subjective perception of it. Let's say that you have a blue cup. You see its color and say, "This is blue." Another person sees the cup, and they also say that it's blue. However, you have no way of knowing whether that person sees the same color as you. Maybe ever since birth, that person saw the color red and heard everyone else describe it as blue, so naturally they call it blue. But if you were to go into their consciousness, you would see that what they describe as blue, you would describe as red. There are many such absurdities in the world that we perceive. For example, there is a condition called complete color vision deficiency. People with this illness don't see any color at all. Most people are able to differentiate between black and white, green and blue. But this small group cannot do that, so we describe them as ill. However, if most people couldn't tell the difference between colors, and only a small minority could see that blue is different than red, that minority would be described as ill. The same goes for schizophrenia. People with this condition see what other people don't see, hear what other people don't hear. That's why they're considered different. But from their perspective, the things they experience are just as real as the things that we experience. We only say that what they see is not real, because it's not real for the rest of us. We describe the reality we experience as right and the reality they experience as wrong. However, there is no right and wrong reality, because all reality is a point of view. It is a quite scary realization to have. With it come questions like, what is reality? Is all of life just an illusion? The doctrine of Zen Buddhism teaches us that in reality there is no such thing as reality. Where there are no names, we create names, and because of these names, judgments are formed. Where there is no theorizing, we theorize, and because of this theorizing, disputes arise. They are all phantom creations, and not realities. And who knows who is right and who is wrong? They are all empty, no substantialities have they, and who knows what is and what is not? So we realize that our gain is not real gain, and our loss is not real loss." End quote. If nothing is real and everything is a perception, what exactly are we left with? Do the things we do even matter? Are all of our experiences and all the things we care about a bunch of insignificant illusions? You see, there is a big problem with those questions. Namely, we ask them and draw conclusions based on our subjective perspective. We hear the statement, "Nothing exists and everything is relative," and we say, if nothing is real and everything is an illusion, then nothing matters. However, where does the nothing matters part come from? It comes from our own point of view on the matter. It is our own interpretation of the statement. So, if you want to interpret the doctrine of Zen as nihilistic, you are perfectly free to do so. Zen is a practice and a doctrine, and how we use it is up to ourselves. In short, your interpretation of everything being a matter of interpretation is also only one of many different interpretations. Here we will focus on the point of view which the doctrine of Zen presents us with. As opposed to, if nothing exists, then life has no meaning. Zen says, if nothing exists and everything is a creation of the mind, then we are all creators of reality. If in our minds life has no meaning, then it really has no meaning. But if in our minds life does have meaning, then it really does have meaning. The point here is not to simply listen to what our minds tell us, but to realize that we can influence our minds, understand them, rule them, and thus understand and rule reality. For 49 years, the Buddha taught only one word: all things are created by mind alone. End quote. The moment we truly understand that all is a creation of our minds is the moment we step onto a higher plane of existence and gain a much better understanding of everything that's going on within us and around us. It can be of tremendous help to us when it comes to both the small and the large difficulties we humans experience. First, let's talk about how knowing that all things are created by our minds helps us deal with the opinions of others. Let's say that someone criticizes you for not working hard enough. In this situation, a lot of people would assume that the person who criticizes them is right. It's because after receiving criticism, we tend to feel emotions such as shame and guilt, which make us believe that the criticism is justified. However, we can realize that not working hard enough is only a point of view. You not working hard enough is an opinion created by the other person's mind. Most likely, it's also a byproduct of their feelings. Maybe they feel anxious that you will lose your job, or that you will fail an exam. I'm neither saying that they're wrong, nor that they are right. The point here is to realize that opinions are not reality. They are only words, which oftentimes represent our fears, insecurities, or even the way that a person was raised. You can choose to listen to them, or you can choose to ignore them. You can choose to let them affect you, or you can choose to let them be, while you can simply go on with your life. If everything is a perspective, our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are as well. Knowing this is especially useful when we want to learn self-control and reach our goals, as opposed to giving in to temptations. Resisting temptation has always been difficult since the beginning of time. I have found that resistance is futile and just increases the power of desire. Instead, try observing your feelings through meditation, particularly the source of the desire. When you resist, you acknowledge that the craving is strong, and you also diminish your own strength to overcome it. However, if you accept the feeling as a part of your existence and apply the Buddha's teaching to it, you will find things much easier to deal with. In time, you may develop the equanimity to observe the temptation and let it go without a struggle. That is the goal. End quote. What we feel and think is temporary. We can think about something, for example going to work, and from the perspective of what we think, it can seem like an incredibly gruesome task. However, Zen teaches that our imagination tends to make things much different than they actually are. We must realize that 5 minutes from now, we can be in a completely different state of mind. Right now, you may think that doing something will be dreadful and that it's not worth it, but that is only how you feel at the moment. Our bodies and our minds are made to adapt to different situations. That's why, no matter how much of a pain we think something will be, once we take the first step and start doing it, the negative feelings and thoughts will start to disappear. If we have a temptation, we tend to think that if we don't give in to it, it will keep bugging us forever. But be honest, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever not done something you knew was bad for you, and then you kept thinking about it for days, weeks, and years? Obviously not. In reality, after let's say an hour, you were probably grateful that you didn't do it. Our perspectives can change drastically in short periods of time. That's why Buddhism teaches that it's best to simply let them be, while we do what we know for a fact is best for us. Simply put, there is no way of making our temptations go away. We must learn to live with them, accept them as parts of ourselves, and simply go on with our lives. No matter how difficult it may seem from our current perspective, we must know that our point of view can and will keep changing. The same goes for love and understanding. Most relationships between humans, both romantic and not romantic, tend to be quite complicated. This too is a matter of the different ways that we look at the world. If I have an image about you, and you have an image about me, naturally we don't see each other at all as what we actually are. What we see are the images we have formed about each other, which prevent us from being in contact, and that is why our relationships go wrong." End quote. Obviously, this quote doesn't quite give us the whole picture, but it helps us make one profound realization, which is that nobody is able to see the whole picture. We see someone do something, and we say that they're wrong, or that they're right. We say that they're a good person, or a bad person. The problem here is that we all think that we're objectively in the right. Therefore, if someone disagrees with us, we think they are objectively in the wrong. But again, we are unable to see the whole picture. Most likely, if we were born in a different place, if we were raised and treated differently, what we would think is objectively right would be completely different. Now, it doesn't mean that we should accept harm from others. The goal here is to realize that we are all prisoners of our own points of view, and therefore be able to understand why others act the way they act and do the things they do. We should still protect what we think is right, but instead of hating people who think differently, it's better to know that in another life we could have been just like them. All in all, the greatest merit of realizing that everything, from our feelings and thoughts to our beliefs and experiences, is created by our minds, is the peacefulness of mind. All of a sudden, things don't seem so serious. All of a sudden, it's easier to accept whatever we're going through. All of a sudden, we are able to put everything in perspective and simply keep living our lives.